And welcome to another episode of Stuck in My Mind podcast. I'm your host, Wize. My next guest has a remarkable story. I'm excited to have him on the show. Welcome to the show, Zane Landin.
Hello, how's it going? Thank you for having me.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing really well.
All right, so let's just jump right into this.
Yeah.
Hold on one second. I thought I had questions.
It's okay.
No, I'm supposed to have questions for you, but I do. All right.
No worries.
No, I do. I didn't do that. Okay. All right. Anyway, so you have a remarkable story. Let's start with something that's like it's tugging on my heart because I'm going through something with my mom right now, and your
Mm,
mom passed away.
mm.
Um, how did that impact your life?
It's I don't know. I wouldn't say I would know, but it's such a hard question to tackle. I think one of the things that impacted my life is I'm not the same person anymore. I think that's one of the things that of course, every single experience we go through is going to change who we are and stuff. But I think that when you lose someone that's, people grieve in different ways, and of course it's very different when it's someone close to you, of course. But it's really hard when you lose someone close to you because you kind of lose a piece of yourself. Because I think when that person passes away, they kind of take that piece with them. And I also do think that whatever people believe, it's if people do believe in the afterlife or anything else, I think that they also, we take a piece of them. I do think that they have to grieve the time that they lost on this planet. So I do think that. I think that there's like an exchange happening where we grieve them, they grieve us, until we finally can merge paths one day. I do believe that. But everything changed. Like my outlook on life changed, my attitude on death changed. You know, it's interesting. Like I've gone through life, when we talk about mental health, like I've had suicidal thoughts, but I was always still scared of death though. But I do think now I'm not, because of my mom's passing. And because I still have this idea that there is something else out there, that does give me hope. And so, when I do move on, I'm going to be moving on to something better. And that's to see my mom again. And so it's interesting because, like, some people don't look at it that way, but I got a positive outlook on life from it, and a negative one, negative one because I have to navigate maybe another 60, 70, 50 years without my mom, which is an overwhelming thing to think about. But I know that there is, cliche enough, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And that's my mom's soul. And so it was difficult. And we didn't know. There was no, she wasn't going through like any health problem that could have led to her death. It was, an emergency surgery for a hernia. And she just came out of it, or she just didn't come out of it. People whose hearts aren't strong enough for, anesthesia surgeries, that's kind of the case. And so she had a heart attack in her sleep, which I hope was peaceful. I can always tell myself that. But yeah, everything changed. Again, a lot of my outlooks changed. I felt like I was lost, didn't have a lot of guidance because my mom was, a moral compass. And so I just think that for people going through that, I don't want to make it sound overwhelming because it's already overwhelming enough. But I do think you're going to come out as a different person. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's something you should embrace because it's okay. When people say, well, where's the old you? Where's the old cheerful you? Well, they died with when my mom died. And so I'm not the same person. And I think that's okay. I think people have to accept that.
Um, Me personally, knowing dealing with my wife passing away when I was 31 in a car accident, unexpected,
Mm,
and the following year reuniting with my dad after not seeing him for 25 years, only to lose him after I see him Father's Day weekend of 2009.
mm,
I get there Friday, he passed away Saturday morning. And then
wow.
it was just like one tragedy after another. I buried two brothers, an uncle and an aunt that helped raise me. And so for me, it was really, I wouldn't say that I felt cold, it was just how I just looking at. I kind of feel what you mean. Like, where's the cheerful, happy you, and all that, and you feel like that piece of you's gone.
Mm,
Your mom, and that was kind of like the same thing with my wife
yeah.
and my and everybody that played a major part in my life. And it took time for me. It took time for me to really get
Yeah.
over. I was angry.
Yeah.
Angry with God. I was just angry. I was like, "Why me? Am I such a horrible person that this is happening to me?" And I
Hmm.
made it about myself.
Hmm.
And when I continued to struggle with it, and I was headed down a bad path. I was homeless. I was sleeping on couches. Didn't really have anything, and it was I had friends who helped me guide me and help me get back on the right path. Gave me an opportunity to crash at their crib and turn my life around.
Hmm.
But it was one moment where something just something someone and whatever you want to believe in told me like, yo, this is not your path. This is not for you. You're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be doing more with your life, and you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And
Hmm.
so for me, feeling that and hearing that in my head, and it was like, all right, I need to seek help. I need to find someone to talk to, whatever therapy, whatever it was. I need to help. I need to because I was tired of being angry.
Yeah.
It was just anger, and it was like, and then I came to realize that it wasn't happening to me. Yes, these things happened, but they weren't happening to me. It was more as, yes, you lost people that you loved. You really made an impact on my a lot of my decisions, which weren't really good decisions. And and when I finally decided to no longer be angry
Hmm.
and to seek the help and to really talk to people about what was going on, things started changing. Um, I started got back on my feet, got back with my family, reunited with my family, and it was just one step at a time. And I, I made sure I got back to working. I got back to being me, or at least trying to be myself.
Yeah.
So I kind of understand what you're going, what you went through, and that side of you where you're like, yeah, I'm not that cheerful person anymore.
Yeah. No. Thank you for sharing all that. Um, and that's it's kind of like a balance of that. Like, you're not the same person, but don't also let your grief like prevent you from finding that opportunity in yourself. Because I think a lot of people, including myself, there are times where I feel too sad to do something, or I feel too sad to chase an opportunity, and I have to kind of go beyond that, or just go against my ego. And I think a lot of people hopefully can find a place to do that. I know it's a process, and it's a long process for many, um, but I don't want people to lose out on their potential or what their purpose is because they're giving into the sadness or the anger.
Yeah, no, I know. Believe me, I
Yeah.
was very I drowned myself in alcohol,
Mm,
and I was didn't care about anyone or anything. I just didn't. I didn't care about myself. I didn't care about anyone else. I didn't. It really didn't matter to me. It was like I was cold.
mhm,
And when I finally decided to, like I said, seek help and open up to people and let them know what I was struggling through and what I was going through, things started changing.
mhm.
So I know your mother played a major significant role in your life, um, and I know now you're doing a lot of stuff to honor her legacy, right?
Yeah. Mm.
What do you feel that what advice would you have for others who may be dealing with something similar to what you went through?
Oh gosh. It's a difficult question because everyone's circumstances are
Different.
so
Yeah.
everyone's circumstances are so different. I guess the only thing I can share is, as I said before, Allow yourself to feel your emotions, allow yourself to grieve, but also again, don't let that grieving overshadow you to the point where it's hard for you to even exist. And that's a hard place to be at. Maybe sometimes you need that for a couple of days, but you cannot stay there because you're just going to feel so much worse. And I think there's a point where people say, I'm at the lowest point in darkness. No, you're not. You could go even further. And that's what's the saddest part. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that as a mean way. I'm just saying that some people think they're at their lowest, but if they stay in that place, they can go even lower or feel even worse. So I think that if you're ever feeling that way, just like what you said, reach out. Like I know that there it doesn't sound like there's many resources, or you don't think that mental health is an option for you, but there are so many organizations that are willing to help. There's so many group sessions for grieving. There's grieving, groups or organizations, and they're really incredibly helpful. And I know it's hard to sit in a group of people to discuss your grief when you don't even know these people, but sometimes I think a stranger's love is what you need the most. If people aren't showing up how you want them in your life. And then I guess my other advice is please just take it one day at a time. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel
Yeah,
sad. Just again,
yeah.
don't let it overcome you. It's okay to feel those things. Trust me, you need to feel those things. You don't want to
Mhm.
ever be in a position where you don't feel those things and it just comes out so much worse later, where it's even self-destructive. And so
And
whatever
then
you can to feel whatever you can to feel your emotions or however you're gonna cope. And then the last thing is we always focus on the sadness, even like in everything with everything, even like the news. The news is so negative. It's just super depressive, and so I think we gravitate towards the negative a lot more. I think we might feel connected through that sadness, but I think that we should also remind ourselves of those good times that we had. Obviously, there were many good times. If you miss someone that much, I think that there were hopefully some good times there, and just try to remember those. And again, like you said at the beginning, honor the legacy. Whatever their legacy was, whatever you think it was, try your best to continue that legacy. Like let how this person made you feel, you be that person for other people too. I think those are things that can help. That would help me, and just try to create more positive memories with that person.
yeah. So how has your experience with depression and anxiety shaped your perspective on mental health?
Um, I guess I mean I was actually recently diagnosed with major depressive disorder like last year, and so it definitely has shifted, what I think of mental health. Because there was actually a long point in my life where I addressed my mental health. I went to counseling, or I had a psychologist, but I was never officially diagnosed. And so I always thought that I was just addressing my mental health like anyone should. Um, until, I was recently diagnosed, and I was like, okay, so now I know that my depression isn't just something that I can always control. It's like actually a brain thing. And so that did actually impact me. And I think a lot of people don't understand it sometimes. I think that some people question, like, what exactly are you sad about? Like, why can't you just get over it? It's just not that simple if you have a mental health condition like that. It's not something that just goes away. And I understand that there are a lot of things that can help that. Like, a lot of people say working out helps, meditation helps, and it all does help. All of it contributes to, better stability, but sometimes you just need medication and professional help. Some people, they need that. And so that is how I see it. And I'm obviously very empathetic and conscientious of people that are going through a lot of stuff. And I think COVID taught us that. Hopefully
Yeah,
the people that were listening during COVID, because I know some people were still kind of insensitive to people's mental health. But I do think going through all that grief, it's definitely changed how I feel about certain things. And I really understand people when they talk about their mental health. And I commend them because it's not a very easy thing to do. Because even though I think I say country because there's a lot of countries in this world where mental health is just not even in their vocabulary for someone to even articulate. And so I'm speaking right here in the United States. I think that in the US, we're pushing boundaries. We're moving forward. I do think that there is a change happening, especially because of COVID. But with everything and with a lot of social justice movements, especially mental health and disability, it's going to be moving very slowly. But I'm glad that I'm seeing some progress though than I have in many years.
yeah. So how did you manage emotional exhaustion during your struggles with mental health?
That's hard, and it still happens today. I don't, and that's what's the best thing about therapy and counseling is they can give you the tools to deal with that. There was a time recently where I was like so overwhelmed, so burnt out, so anxious that I actually texted the hotline. I've actually never done that before, um, because I guess I would say the old me, and this is someone that even a year ago would probably just try and get over it, try and get over the anxiety. Even after all the work I've done, I still had a struggle to reach out or think about those resources. Especially if you're going through a crisis or you're really anxious, you may not be thinking about those resources. You might be thinking about how do I get over this? And so some people might try to find immediate distractions, and I tried my best, but I was like, this time around, I'm gonna text a hotline because I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't really want to talk to anyone right now, but I will text the hotline. And so, like I said, it was the first time I did that, but it was actually very helpful because, of course, these people are trained and they give you tools and guidance on how you can start feeling better, and it's someone to open up to. And like I said before, sometimes talking to a stranger you don't know, where there's no strings attached, is very helpful.
Oh no, it is, and this right here is my outlet. This is where I go to escape and really um just talk it out. Like for me, like right now, I'm going through my mom is dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's, and she's deteriorating in front of our eyes, and for me, I try to just picture her as a strong woman that she was, and to see her now is like it's draining.
Yeah.
And it's like I could imagine what my sister's going through because my sister deals with her 24/7. I go there three times a week to go see my mom and spend time with her,
Mm,
and so I could imagine, and I struggle emotionally when I go see her, so I could imagine what my sister's going through, and
yeah.
so I just try to be as supportive to her
Mhm.
because I know she's struggling with it because that's her best friend.
Yeah.
My mom is her best friend, and I'm a mama's boy. I'm the baby. I'm the youngest. So for me, it's like I can't. It's a struggle,
Yeah.
and I use this to really help me deal with it, to be able to come out and talk about it,
Mhm.
and let people know. Listen, everybody's going through stuff in life. It's how you deal with it. It's how you you're able to embrace those that are around you because I have a great support system. I have a beautiful wife that's supportive. I have friends that like just I can talk to when I need to talk to. But
Mhm.
this right here, the podcast itself, is my outlet. It's my way of giving back to show people like, listen, regardless of what you're going through in life, there is someone out there listening, and there is someone out there who is trying to help you navigate through whatever you're going through.
Yeah. No, and I'm
Um,
happy that this is an outlet you can use. Um, that's hard, and I kind of want to just think about what you said, and just to remember that again, I'm not in your shoes, but I would say I don't know your mom, but she's is still a strong person.
yeah.
It's just sometimes the body
Yeah,
is just so
the spirit is strong, but
yeah,
yes, like you said, the body is it's just not there.
yeah, yeah.
So can you all right. So has how has your experience with depression, anxiety really shaped the perspective your perspective on mental health?
I guess what I would say is I really understand it, and I think there are a lot of people that still question what mental health is or what a mental health condition is, and they still will resort to the classic image that you see in the media of someone who's crazy, erratic, irrational, violent. And of course, those outliers exist. Like those people are out there, but the vast majority of people with mental health conditions are just struggling and they're just trying to get by. And they're living in a world where people don't want to listen, where people want to avoid them. And it's just a very sad reality. And so like try to be understanding, and I understand that I can't help everyone. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm only here to advocate for myself and other people. I just hope we can get to a world where it really comes down to having more compassion. And I think it's shaped how I am because I see how people react to mental health, and I see how people don't react to it. I think it's made me a stronger person, but I'm happy I'm in a place where mental health is very much open and supported. I haven't been around many people that don't believe in it or don't believe you should address it because I don't know how you can believe that. We all go through something emotionally. I guess some people can argue that medication isn't the answer for you, um, for you, but there are many people that it can help. And I wouldn't denounce it because it doesn't work for you. Just have an open mind. So I think it's opened my mind. It's allowed me to tap into a place where I really deeply understand people that say they're suicidal or that they're thinking of hurting themselves. I know what that's like. I've been there. I am there sometimes. It doesn't go away. So I think a lot of times people think of mental health as like physical health, and they're not the same. They're both important equally. They're not the same. Because just because you take a mental health medication, that doesn't mean something in your mind flares up and you have those thoughts again. You never know when they're going to come up again, and that's kind of the scary part. But you have the tools and you have the support system to deal with it better.
And that's something that in the past wasn't, especially like where I'm from. um Mental health was like, this is not something we would share. Like,
Yeah.
you're me being a Hispanic male,
Hmm.
and black also, these are communities that you're supposed to be a man. You don't cry,
Yeah.
you don't share
Yeah.
your emotions, you just tough it out. And since the pandemic, it's really shifted towards now it's okay for men to show their vulnerability. That's something that wasn't cool. It
Yeah.
wasn't cool for a man to show his vulnerability, because then they would say you were weak.
Yeah.
And it's the complete opposite. When you're able to show your vulnerable side and show people that, hey, listen, I'm just like we're like everyone else. We
Mhm.
struggle. We have our issues. We go through what we go through, and you shouldn't expect us, because we're men, to just brush it aside. And now we're at a time where, like I said, more people are realizing, like, hey, that it's okay to be you. It's okay to show that you're vulnerable. It's okay for you to show that you're emotional, that you have feelings, that you hurt, that you and for me, it's just been, like I said, this is my outlet. So when I discovered that this was what I wanted to do, and this was my purpose,
Mhm.
I made it my mission to speak to people like yourself, that have a story that they can share, to hopefully inspire people and let them know, listen, whatever you're struggling, there's people out there who are going through something similar. It might not be the same exact thing, but they're struggling just as you are.
Yeah. No, I can't really imagine someone that's not really struggling. Maybe they're not going through something in the moment, but we all share problems, like all of us do. And I think I think people need to start kind of understanding that and acknowledging that, and that the world isn't just about them. Like it's such a rude awakening for some people, but it's kind of true though. And if you can actually look at the world that's not about you, you actually might be able to be more free. Because like you said before, all the stuff that happened to you, you look at it personally like that. Like, why did this happen to me? So I think sometimes if you do look at the world is just for you or it's catering to you, it's very frustrating when terrible things happen because since it's all about you, it feels like it's a curse on you when it's not. These are things that just naturally happened,
Yeah,
which is very sad. And so I think you can be freer if actually you put the burden off yourself and just look at the world more minded. Like look through, understand different perspectives. And I like that you touch on men's mental health because I do enjoy talking about that, and that like men have had a long time of being told that, like I said, being emotional is weak. Luckily I wasn't. really told that, but I do think in our culture we still feel it.
Yeah.
You know, like I still think like even if someone tells you it's okay for you to be vulnerable as a man, we have a lot more to do than just telling men. We have to just have a cultural attitude shift because it's still very prevalent, and I think it's mixed messaging because I will see people say you can be vulnerable as a man, but then I'll see that same person make fun of a man for crying. I'm like, I don't know I don't really know exactly what you want, and they were making fun of this person because they didn't like them, and I'm like, well, it's not fair for you to use that as an example to make fun of them. Well, you shouldn't make fun of them anyways.
Yeah.
But two, you can't be using that as an example if you're going to be preaching that men should be vulnerable because look what happened. A man's going to be vulnerable, and then in 5 years, you don't like him, and then you're going to use that against him. You have to be very careful, especially when it comes to, well, anyone's emotions, you have to be very careful. But with men too, because it's really harder for men to be open. And if they take that chance and it's taken away from them and it's used against them, they're gonna put another lock on those emotions even more, and it's gonna be even harder for them to open up because of those reasons. And so I always tell people like be patient with men because we still live in a world where you know there's mixed messaging when it comes to this narrative, and I hope it changes where men can embrace being vulnerable however they can for themselves. I think especially a lot of the messages, it's a lot of men can cry, which yes, definitely. I want men to be vulnerable on how they want to show up. You
Mhm.
know, not everyone's a crier.
Yeah.
I think that men should be able to cry, but I don't personally that much. And
Yeah.
so I try to be vulnerable in ways that I can be. And just because you're not crying doesn't mean you're not being vulnerable. You're just showing up vulnerably in a different way. And I think that's great too, you know?
Yeah. And it's I have no believe me, I have no issues crying. For me, but for me, it's different. It was I was raised by my mom and my sister, so I'm I've always been empathetic. I've always had that. So it's never been an issue with my mom or like and any other stuff like that to be vulnerable and show. It's with outside of the family that it's where people be like, oh, men ain't supposed to cry, none of this stuff. So
Mhm.
how has what does well actually what role does vulnerability play in your advocacy work, and how has it impacted your connections with other?
Well, it's kind of difficult to do some of this work without being vulnerable because if you're going to be an advocate for mental health and you're going to be open about your mental health, you kind of have to be vulnerable to share experiences that, quite frankly, some people don't want to hear. Like, nobody wants to hear the time where I was suicidal. Who wants to hear that? Well, someone who's struggling might want to hear that. But I think a lot of people are scared of that still. You know, like it's uncomfortable. Like even as an advocate, when I hear someone's very open about being suicidal or they were, I'm like, I feel uncomfortable because it's scary. You know, even the work I do, it's still scary to hear. But I'm happy people are talking about it because they need to, if they feel comfortable. But I think being vulnerable allows you to be a better advocate because you can really understand where people are coming from. Again, if there was no vulnerability, I I couldn't really be a mental health advocate because I wouldn't be choosing to understand how someone's feeling or what they're going through. And so I do think that vulnerability is like peeling those onion layers that, you peel one, you get close to the truth. And you peel another, you get close to the truth. It's not about just being vulnerable and trustworthy with your partner. I think when you're vulnerable with someone else, you learn about them and you learn mostly probably about yourself. Because again, peeling those onion layers forever. I don't think you're ever going to get to the center or the truth of who you are. I think you're always going to be having to peel layers with everything that goes on in your life. But again, doing that with someone or just being vulnerable with yourself. Some people don't want to do that. Some people will avoid their own emotions, but sometimes people write things down, they'll listen to music, they'll really think about what they're going through. That you can be vulnerable with yourself too. Being vulnerable doesn't mean you have to show up vulnerably for other people. I hope you can. I hope you feel comfortable doing that one day.
Mhm.
But try and be vulnerable with yourself to start if it is difficult.
No, no, that's music for me is a spot where
Hmm.
I'll sit down and there's certain music that I'll just listen to and they'll get it'll help me out. So
Yeah.
that's really another thing that I enjoy is really music. Music is really an escape for me as well.
Yeah.
So, how does your perspective on life and personal identity evolve over the years, particularly in the contents of your mental health journey?
Hmm. Hmm. Could you repeat that?
How does your perspective on life and personal identity evolved over the years, particularly in the contents of your mental health journey?
Well, interesting. I mean, my personal identity was I just thought I was addressing mental health. Luckily, my family was aware of mental health. Many families aren't, and so I was kind of fortunate that my mom was kind of an advocate for mental health and had no problem putting me in, seeing a psychologist because my mom didn't see anything wrong with it. And I kind of, we obviously have very different backgrounds, but my dad's parents are Mexican, and so I never really talked about it. Mental health. We didn't talk about mental health. I never really even thought about talking about it at all. Even sometimes when it came up, it was, I'm sure it's the religious stuff. If you pray, it'll go away. Go to church, and
Yeah,
so some of that that didn't really affect me because again, I just accepted it. It's not something I needed to talk about with my grandparents. It was luckily I had, you know, my family. Like I'm identify as queer and I can't really talk about that with like my grandma or my grandpa who passed. And my dad kind of recently apologized about that. I'm like, there's no reason to be sorry. I really don't mind. Like it's not something that's important to me. I know for some people that they really want to be out with their entire family, but at this point, I'm happy to be out to my immediate family and even got to my dad's siblings, which was really interesting. Like I remember my dad just saying if it would be okay if he told them. I'm like, sure, like, okay. Like, I don't know, like, I never thought about it because I never thought that would ever happen. So it was a really exciting time, but I was okay with that. And so I guess with my mental health, it really has shaped my identity. Well, again, thinking I was just addressing mental health, but now actually having a condition, I will be honest, when I was first diagnosed, I was a for months I was looking forward to it. So I was like, when I finally get diagnosed, if I actually do have a condition, there's actually like a reason for how I think or the reason why I behave this way or the reason why I'm depressed from time to time and can't figure out why. But I was actually kind of shocked with my reaction because when they told me, or when my therapist told me, or psychiatrist, when they kind of diagnosed me, I was like, huh. I thought I was gonna be like happy about it, but I was like, no, I'm actually kind of sad about it because like for the longest time, it was this predictability that I was like, I probably am this, but I'm still not sure, and maybe it was something that I didn't have. Now that it's like a diagnosis, it's like, oh no, this is kind of gonna probably be a thing that I kind of have to deal with forever. And so that is kind of the overwhelming nature of it. But it's also a good thing because now I know exactly what to tackle. I know exactly what the issue is. And so it has changed definitely my identity when that happened. But no, I don't know if it's changed much because I've experienced it for so long. The diagnosis was just a surprising feeling. But since
yeah.
I've experienced it for so long, since I was a kid, basically, it didn't really change too much. It's just kinda who I am at this point. I don't really know. I can't really detach myself from it, to be honest. I could try, but without it, I don't know. I don't think I'd be myself. So, it I guess at that point, it has definitely almost shaped my entire identity, if that makes sense then.
Yeah. So how do you balance the
Mhm.
emotional demands of advocacy work with self-care and setting boundaries for your mental wellness?
Oh, that's a great question because I think a lot of mental health advocates forget their own mental health in the process because they're really so stuck on helping other people that you forget yourself. And that's not to say that mental health advocates that do that are hypocrites. No, especially since they're ones that do preach self care and that stuff. I wouldn't say they're hypocrites. I just think that it's very easy to forget yourself. Like it's very easy to do that, and that's even like even social workers. Like they do so much for other people that that's why it's such like a hard field to get into. That's why you always every time I hear someone wants to get into social work, it's not the profession for everyone,
You know,
because of that reason. And so the
could be
demands
draining. Yeah,
is
could be
the
very
like
draining.
yeah, I guess I would say is the demand is that I don't
How do
know.
you deal with it though?
Yeah, yeah.
how do you deal with it? What are the things you do to refill your cup, to refill what you?
Well, one thing is I try to communicate, and that if I'm in these mental health organizations, they will understand. If you're going through something mentally, you hope so. That would be pretty sad. But even recently, like I forgot, like I'm part of this fellowship with this mental health organization, and I missed a meeting because I was had a lot going on. I was sick, but I was honestly really depressed. And it was like a week or two later, and like one of the leader we work really closely with, he reached out and he's like, "Oh, like, how are you doing? Like, how are things going with you?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm just not used to that, especially since it's like a work thing. I'm used to it just being professional, and I'm not saying that I'm not asked that, but it was a different dynamic with him because I know that he has a lot of mental health experience, so he was really asking from this mental health genuine place, and I didn't feel uncomfortable to say I'm actually feeling quite depressed. um, and yeah, and he responded with just saying if there's anything that I need to make the experience better to let him know. And I know that's coming from a genuine place. And so that's one thing that I do to combat that is like be communicative. If you're really going through something, just let people know. And that's hard to do because again, it's still hard to be vulnerable. It really is. Even in a safe place where people preach it or they encourage it, it's still hard because the stigma is it's still really relevant or prevalent in our society. So sometimes it's that stigma, it gets in your head and it convinces you that it's not okay to reach out. So I just try my best to ignore those thoughts sometimes. And then two, just trying to making sure that I do things that I'm passionate about, that I really enjoy. And then you can say, well, is that mental health advocacy? Yes, it is. But other things despite that. I started cooking in February, like last year, and I love it so much. And so honestly, if I'm ever stressed out, I'll cook a meal and that will actually calm me down. So it's really about finding some things that you really enjoy doing and to actually make sure you do it. And for some people, they have to schedule that, like, schedule in your phone that you're gonna go take a walk at this time, or schedule that you need to just take a break and stop what you're doing for 20 minutes. Like, put it in your phone, schedule it, because, like I said, very easy to forget. So those are some of the things I do.
Yeah, no, this is. I feel like I tell you, what I. This is my release here. This right
Yeah.
here, doing interviewing people and talking to people and hearing their stories, and that's my outlet. That's my release. This is my safe place for me.
Yeah.
This is where I go to when I'm stressed and when I want to recharge my battery and I want to get out of that dark place.
Mhm.
And so this is where I go. Is to be able to come here and have these conversations with people and show people like, look, there are people out there who care.
Yeah.
There are people out there that want to make an impact, that want to help you as much as possible. Just sometimes some of us are not willing. We're not receptive to it. Some of us like we're afraid to ask for help,
Mhm.
and that should never be the case. You should always be able to ask for help and not be ashamed to do it.
Yeah, and I think that when you're in a dark place, it's easy to convince yourself
Yeah,
that there really isn't anyone out there, but when we said to tell yourself there really is, and the people in your life that are struggling, tell them that there is, and in general, just try to show your appreciation more, not just you specifically, but
no, no,
everyone like that. I think there's two things that we can do for ourselves to always find something to have gratitude for, and that is not to downplay what you're going through. It's just to ground you in the things that you do have and you do have control over. Because I feel like sometimes when we're going through a tragedy or something just not good, It's easy to feel out of control. It's easy to feel like nothing's going well, but you still have some things that are going well. I think that can make you kind of come back to a good, stable place. Maybe not the best, but better. And
Yeah.
the second thing is just trying to show people how much you appreciate them. However, you show that, I think can go a long way for someone that maybe doesn't feel appreciated or doesn't feel needed or wanted in the world.
Yeah. What what are your future goals and aspirations in the field of mental health advocacy? What are things you would like to see happen?
My goals. Okay, I mean, I'm just gonna be completely honest. Like, this is probably a big goal, but I mean, my goal is for one day to be appointed by the president to serve on some sort of mental health committee. That would be really exciting. That would be my future goal. And I've met the president through mental health advocacy. I met him in May of 2022 through a program that I did with MTV. And so I've gotten to the White House. Like, I've been invited, I've seen it. It's incredible. And so I would love to go back and do mental health advocacy on a more national policy level. And I'm doing the fellowship, like I mentioned, with this newer organization, but they are making leaps. Like, they are doing a lot of good work, and so it's exciting to be involved with them and what they do in the future. In terms of like what I just want to see in the future, I just want mental health to be more accessible, to be discussed more options for more mental health practitioners, for more accessible resources, so many things. Making sure that it's affordable, that's a big one. So there's a lot that I would love to see change with mental health, and those are some.
Awesome, awesome, man. This has been a great conversation. I really do appreciate you coming through,
Yeah,
man.
thank
But
you.
now is the time you get the solo screen. You let people know where they can find you, website,
Yeah,
anything.
I try to make myself as accessible as possible. So you have my name, and if you type in my name, I'm really active on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and I'm always willing to talk about mental health or entrepreneurship or public relations, because that's the work I do in my actual job. Whatever it is. But yeah, please reach out.
All right. Thank you so much. Really wanted to have you on because again, like someone who's dealt with grief, it was important for me to have you on and for you to share your story and let people know like yes, we all struggle, we all lose a lot of people that we love and it's not easy. It really isn't easy to be able to grieve, but like you
Yeah.
said, you have to find your way of grieving.
Yeah.
You have to find your form and how you're gonna deal with it and everything. So I greatly appreciate you being on the show, man. This is been an honor having you on. Um, I'm whenever you have a future project or something coming out, hit me up. I would love to have you back on the show, talk some more.
Ooh, that would be great. And I do want to say lastly, like what you were talking about, grief is still a really touchy subject for a lot of people. Even people where mental health is becoming more normalized, grief is still one of those areas that I think people still really struggle to talk about, which very understandable. Um, luckily for I think luckily for me, I get excited to talk about it. It actually makes me happy to talk about grief because, well, for one, I'm talking to someone that understands,
Mhm.
and two, I just kind of can relive the moments with my mom, even if I have to revisit the dark past of her passing. But I get to remember and just kind of think how she would feel now, and be proud, hopefully. But that would be great if I can come back again. It was great. It was great chatting. It was a great conversation.
And that's why I do the podcast is to be able to have these conversations.
Mhm.
I have coaches on. I have entrepreneurs on. I have because there's so much to what I want. I want like I love doing my podcast because if I impact one person's life,
Yeah.
I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and so it's a blessing to be able to do this, and it's a blessing to sit down with the people that I sit down and interview and talk to because again, it's being able to impact one person's life to me is very important And so I I I look forward to
Yeah.
doing look forward to actually communicating with you more. I'm saying, and anytime you have any content you want to share, or let me know. I'll share it with my audience and stuff like that.
Oh, wow, okay. No,
So
thank you, that's great. Um, yeah, what was I gonna say? Oh, I get what I understand what you mean. I have a digital platform where I've interviewed probably like 100-ish people or 90. Um, geez, like every interview, I come out so different. I've had interviews where I was like physically shaking after, not because I was mad, but because it was so impactful. And I remember those interviews and I saved them so I can watch some of them. But wow, I understand what you mean. Like some of these interviews are so insightful. And some of the people I've been able to talk to, I'm like, I just can't believe I had that kind of conversation with someone.
oh no, I've had some great conversations with people. I've been able to learn so much,
Yeah.
and it's been an amazing ride, man. It's been like I said, I'm blessed to be able to have found my purpose and find a platform where I can make an impact. And like I said, if it's one person or two people, 100 people, it don't matter to me. It's like because it's a ripple effect for me. Is if I
Yeah.
impact one person's life, what impact are they going to have on other people? So
Exactly.
so it's important for me to really continue to do what I'm doing, to continue to have the conversations that I have, and I'm just looking forward to what 2024 has in store. Because like personally, it was a rough 2023. But as far as the podcast goes, it was one of my best years podcasting. It was one of I've became one of the top 5% podcasts in the world. Um, People are really feeling what I'm doing and really enjoy what I'm doing. So for me, it was bittersweet because I really didn't get to enjoy it like I really wanted to because of all the personal things going on.
Yeah.
But 2024 is it's starting off right. Having had quite a few some great conversations, and I'm just looking forward to what the future holds and where I can take my podcast. That hopefully take it to the next level.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And to return the favor, if you ever need any support, you let me know too.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's out live now. I'll send you the links and everything. And when I release it to the audio, I'll also send you that, and you can share it with your audience and
Yeah.
share it with your social media and everything. But thank you, Zane. Thank you for being a guest, man. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much again.
But don't leave just yet. We'll chat a little bit off the air. But let me just close out the show and thank you once again. It was wonderful conversation.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, everybody. To everybody who stopped by, Sarah, love you. Appreciate you always coming through and supporting. You are the best. Lularo, no, I'm not a psychologist. Hi, how you doing? Do you know about parents' divorce? No, my parents divorced when I was separated when I was young, so I really don't remember much of that. But thank you for tuning in. I greatly appreciate everybody who stops in, leaves comments. I greatly appreciate it. As always, big shout out to my Real Wise fam, Poppy J, Brandy J. Love you guys. Big shout out to the boss lady. Love you and appreciate you. Big shout out to my guest, Zane, for coming through and sharing his story and really opening up and allowing you all to see his vulnerable side and everything. And as always, a big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless you. Be safe. You know how your boy Wise does it. Peace out.